today, June 14th, 2020, are the Reverend Claudia Jimenez, today's visiting minister, Bruce Ruby, our music director, Karen Frank, our Zoom host, and me, Judy Clow, worship associate. As we begin our time together, I invite you to mute yourselves so that we are not distracted by background noise. Now I invite you to locate the chat icon on your screen, click on the three dots, select chat, and type in hello. If you're on a cell phone or an iPad, just tap on the screen, maybe in the upper right-hand corner, and do the same. Now you will be invited to share joys and concerns using the chat box later in our service. So it looks like you are muted. Okay, great, we're ready to begin. It's good to see all of your faces. It is a blessing that we have this technology to remain connected. Now, Bruce will play the prelude in F sharp major by Frédéric Chopin.
How do I get this together? Say louder.
Thank you, Bruce. We are happy that you have joined us at the second Zoom service at TCUUC. We are a welcoming congregation and celebrate those of all colors, ages, and gender identities. Our announcements are in the Friday e-newsletter. Please support the congregation via checks made out to TCUUC and mailed to 21 Southeast Central Parkway, Stuart, Florida, 34997, or via our website, www.tcuuc.org. Look on the right side of the banner for the word giving and click there for clear instructions. I'm happy to introduce Claudia this morning. She was a familiar face on Sunday mornings a few years back, and it's lovely to see and hear her again. The Reverend Claudia Jimenez serves as Minister of Faith Development at the Unitarian Universalist Congregation in Asheville in North Carolina. She was hired in 2018 after graduating from Meadville Lombard Theological School, being granted preliminary fellowship and becoming a credentialed religious educator. Prior to seminary, she served as Director of Religious Education for the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship in Vero Beach, Florida, for 17 years. During that time, she ran for office and served on her local school board for 8 years. Her background is in education, having taught elementary school and middle school science in the US and abroad. When not at work, she enjoys Latin dancing, cooking, and Friday Zoom calls with her family. Claudia will speak this morning on the Great Transition. Now it's time to light the chalice. So just imagine it looks a little more chalice-like. Our community knows no boundaries. We are not confined by the physical limits of walls, or for that matter, of what often binds us, restricts us, holds us back. We are freer than we know when we release ourselves and each other from expectations of what is needed for true community. We are here together in space. I see you, I hear you, I love you, and I light this chalice, a beacon of this community, holding us all together, here, now. As we join together in community this morning, may we keep in our minds and hearts those who are struggling with racism and poverty and illness at this difficult time. Next, we will sing hymn number 347, Gather the Spirit. Bruce will play through it once.
Gather in peace, gather in peace, gather in sympathy now and then. Gather in hope, compassion and strength. Gather to celebrate.
will do the affirmation. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another.
Before I share a story, I would just like to say how honored I am to be before you once again. And I want to thank your congregation for their contribution to my ministerial journey and the work that I needed to do to become a minister. So I see many familiar faces, and it is wonderful to see you again. And I see many new faces, and it is wonderful to know that Unitarian Universalism is growing in Stewart. Thank you for allowing me to join you today. The story I offer you is entitled, "What Do You Do with a Chance?" Written by Kobi Yamada and illustrated by Besom. And now is the time in our service when we have gathered virtually in community, when we see each other's faces. Just take a look at that gallery view, scroll through those faces, see each other, and take a moment to be present to each other as we in this virtual community share joys and concerns that we hold in our hearts this morning. And I invite you to do that by going to the chat and typing in a joy or a sorrow that you bring with you today. Karen will read those joys and sorrows or concerns, and I will be putting a stone in this water that is our communal water that will hold those joys and sorrows or concerns that we share symbolically to remind us that across the distance, we are held by the love that we share among us.
Well, I'll start it out. I have a joy that we were able to celebrate my mother's birthday on Thursday. So it was my mother and Bob and my brother, and that was a lot of fun. So I'm happy about that. Janet Grote has a concern. She has fire ants in her house. Yikes. Carol Guthrie says she feels some hope at this most horrible time we are living through. Judy Bajora says, happily we are back in Jensen Beach and we have a contract on our house in Annapolis. Welcome back.
Yes, okay. Bruce and I are hatching butterflies. We have chrysalis left. We've hatched 2 black swallowtails, and we've got 9 more to go. They've eaten us out of dill. Thank you. There is life out there.
Any other joys or concerns? If you want to raise your hand, I can also unmute you. Barney? I think I can unmute you.
Okay. That we were able to see our grandchildren, go visit our grandchildren down in Hollywood on Wednesday. And what a joy.
Thank you. Betty?
I got to get, am I muted? My great joy is getting to hold my great granddaughter for the first time since her birth on May 2nd. Her name is Mwani Kiva Hanley.
Thank you. And Judy Chaloni says she's happy to see her friend Carol here today, see all of you, and thrilled to see Claudia. Okay, so, and let's transfer over this stone for all those other joys and sorrows and concerns that have been unspoken, but that we hold in our hearts. So thank you all.
And now I invite you for a moment of prayer or meditation as we listen to the words of Reverend Sarah Lawal. We are called together by love, a love deep enough to hold our joys and sorrows, our pain and loss, our doubts and fears. A love strong enough to steady us in the thresholds of life, awaiting the next blessing. May we find the courage to persevere in the storm, to see the holy and the broken, to stay present to life. When the pull to disappear takes hold with all its harsh realities, may we conjure up that fierce love to bring our hopeful vision into being, discovering the humanity, bravery, goodness still calling us forth. May we breathe into that story and make it come alive. May we be vessels of comfort and compassion. May we be vessels of peace and justice. May we be vessels of hope and feeling and healing. May love prevail. In the name of all that is holy, we pray. Amen. Let us share a moment of silence. And now I invite you to join in singing Spirit of Life. We will through it once and then sing, and the words will be projected by Corina. Our sermon this morning is entitled The Great Transition, because, my friends, these are times of opportunity and hopefully meaningful transition. So I begin with a reading. The author is anonymous. It is entitled, We Are Not on the Same Boat. I heard that we are all in the same boat, but it's not like that. We are in the same storm, but not in the same boat. Your ship could be shipwrecked and mine not be, or vice versa. For some, quarantine has been optimal, a moment of reflections, of reconnections, easy in flip-flops with a cocktail or coffee. For others, it has been a desperate financial and family crisis. Some want to go back to work because they don't qualify for unemployment and are running out of money. Others want to shame those who break quarantine. Some have experienced the near death of the virus. Some have already lost someone from it. And some are not sure if their loved ones are going to make it. Others don't believe this is a big deal. We are not on the same boat. We are going through a time when our perceptions and needs are completely different. Each of us will emerge in our own way from this storm. It is important to see beyond what is seen at first glance, not just looking, actually seeing. We are all on different ships during this storm, experiencing a very different journey. This reading is the lens through which I hear the call for a reset in this time of transition. This pandemic and recent protests to Blackness have re-emphasized in an unexpected and profound way how the societal inequities here and abroad reveal to us that in this storm, this virus, this coronavirus, this virus of racism, not only are we on different boats, but some are clinging to driftwood while the storm rages. Not everyone is able to pause and stay at home comfortably as I have been able to do, and perhaps some of you have been able to do. Many struggle to survive. Beyond the sick and dead victims of this virus and of the virus of racism, many essential workers, grocers, cooks, cleaners, drivers, cashiers, migrant workers, we thank them all. And yet they do not earn a living wage or have adequate health insurance while working each day in fear. We need a reset, a recalibration. We need so much more than a pause. Do we want to get back to normal if it means returning to the complacency of a dysfunctional, abusive, and oppressive status quo? We need healthcare for all. This pandemic makes it clear that healthcare for some is not enough and reveals our national failure to care for one another. We need living wages for all. If farm workers are essential, then paying them an honest wage must be essential. We need to restore hope to young people who graduate college, and many did so online this year, with so much debt and such a high unemployment rate that they despair of achieving their dreams. The reality of children sequestered at home has revealed something that society has been ignoring for years, that raising children just doesn't happen after work, that institutions like schools and daycare centers are essential parts of the social contract. As journalist Claire Kane Miller recently wrote, raising the next generation is a public good, not a purely private good. The widespread failure of online schooling, especially with the economically challenged, highlights the dilemma of teachers who, with minimal preparation, struggle to teach children online. Journalist Elizabeth Harris recently wrote, with teachers relegated to computer screens, parents take on other roles, such as teacher's aide, counselor, hall monitor, all while trying to do their own jobs. It may be a silver lining that society is gaining a new and profound appreciation for the multifaceted role that teachers are expected to assume on a daily basis beyond teaching children. We need teachers who are paid fairly for their irreplaceable dedication to our children's education. We need a reset, not a pause, a re-envisioned social contract that prioritizes education and recognizes that our children are an invaluable resource. Generations that in the near future will determine our fate as we confront this crisis and the one lining up right beside it, climate crisis. Let us not return to the dysfunctional status quo that is abusive and oppressive to so many and to our planet. We need a reset, not a pause, because the recent deaths of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and Tony McDade remind us that Black male, female, and trans bodies are victims of the public health crisis that is racism enabled by white body supremacy. Let's not return to the status quo that is oppressive and abusive to so many. What can we commit to doing so we do not go back to business as usual? I know it's challenging. We are living through a pandemic illness and a vacuum of national leadership, a calamitous synergy, a train wreck of biology and human failure. So it is up to each of us to do our part. We can't do everything, but in the collective, we can be a mighty force for change. Now that we are able to cross the thresholds of our homes and re-engage with the Stewart community, what can our talents, time, and resources do on behalf of justice? Many have shared financial resources during this time of physical distancing, and that is most helpful when we cannot literally lend a hand. And as public theologian Ruby Sales reminds us, charity, that kind of giving, is not equal to justice. What work can we do for structural change needed for there to be justice? If the reality of inequity magnified by this pandemic and police brutality makes us angry, how do we harness our anger in the service of love? What is the role of this church at this pivotal moment? I think the church has a crucial role in supporting spiritual deepening that encourages justice work rooted in the Unitarian Universalist principles that we affirm and promote. You are adapting from a congregation that gathered in physical distance to a congregation that part of our virtual connection is figuring out how to worship together, so please make sure that your sound is muted. So as we adapt to this virtual reality, right, with all its particularities and imperfections, what will we do? You will not return to the way of doing church before the pandemic. Until there is a vaccine, it is unlikely that large gatherings will be recommended. The future will be different in significant and unknown ways. By applying imagination, talents, and taking a chance, might the church be able to view our current circumstance as an opportunity to re-envision the purpose of church, the ways that we work together, the ways that we engage in justice work. The church can support each of you in discerning your role in disrupting inequity. One way is disrupting white supremacy. Audre Lorde wrote, "The master's tools will never dismantle the master's house." We must challenge ourselves to identify, to truly see the subtle and the evident tools and legacy of white supremacy culture, and to replace them with inclusive, collaborative ways of being. Churches can be places where this hard work of a lifetime is promoted and facilitated. What work is this congregation doing to disrupt racism and white supremacy culture we all carry? As Ibram Kendi says, you are either a racist or an anti-racist. What work is this congregation doing so all its members are anti-racist? How are families being supported in this? I believe that once that was done, that is one way of being proximate to the reality and the story of people in our country that have been oppressed. And when we study that history, it opens us in such a way that we can no longer go back to business as usual. My friends, we need a reset, not a pause. Our faith community challenges us to engage in justice work, driven by love and curiosity, encouraging us to be more vocal and visible, caring not only about the Black vote, for example, but about the Black voter. Love-driven justice calls us to widen our social circles and build relationships beyond our comfort level. This could be a time of imagining what that would be like. We need a reset, not a pause. We have an opportunity to reach out to the disaffected through the UU the Vote campaign, supported by our denomination. What work is this congregation doing to get out the vote and disrupt voter suppression in the November election, just a few months away? We need a reset, not a pause. What can each of us commit to doing so that we do not go back to business as usual? I believe this is an opportunity. How much oppression of others, how much death are we willing to endure? What are we each willing to do for justice once we cross the threshold of our homes and re-engage with the Stewart community? What will be different? My friends, we can choose, each of us, to make this a reset, not a pause. A step forward, not a step back. I close with the words of a friend, an artist, who says, "May we grow back, not to what was, but instead towards what we can become." This can be a time of great transition fueled by love. What will your role be? Amen, and blessed be. So friends, as we think about what that says to us, I know it's hard work, and I know it isn't easy. And at the same time, there is much for us to be grateful for. So as part of my closing for this sermon, I share this video so that we balance the necessity to do this hard work and confront what is happening and the sadness and the despair and the anger that it elicits, with also gratitude for the many things that are working well in our society. Okay. So our time together has ended. May this week be a time of wondering. How are you being changed in this time of physical distancing? A time of wondering what chances you are willing to take so we don't go back to business as usual. All of us taking a chance for love and justice could be the start of something incredible. Thank you for joining us today. May you be well this week and always.
Thank you, Claudia. As I extinguish the chalice, signifying the warmth of our church community, may its light remain in your hearts, along with these words of Claudia, reminding us to reset and to see what we can do as a church community to reset together. Bruce will be playing We Shall Overcome.
So I invite everybody now to, thank you, Bruce. I invite everybody now to stay for a coffee hour. I'm going to unmute everyone and put you all in different breakout rooms.